If there's one genre of video games that I feel most strongly resonate with what I find enjoyable in video games, it has to be puzzle games. There's a book by video game designer Raf Costa called A Theory of Fun for Game Design, and in it, Raf has an idea about what makes games in general universally fun, and it's always stuck with me as a quintessential truth of the medium. It goes, quote, "Fun from games arises out of mastery. It arises out of comprehension. It is the act of solving puzzles that makes games fun. In other words, with games, learning is the drug." It seems like a silly idea, right? But the more I looked back at the games I enjoyed most, the more the quote or the idea itself ran true. With first-person shooters, the fun was always in understanding the sandbox and figuring out the best strategy for how best to take out enemies. Halo 2, for example, you've got the noob combo pairing a plasma pistol shot followed up by a single shot from a battle rifle to immediately kill an enemy. It's that comprehension of the tools, the sandbox, and gameplay that lead to those little discoveries and strategies being so fun, and it makes the game overall fun. It's also in the DNA of us as humans. We like challenges, we like puzzles, we like that feeling of accomplishing something that arguably only we as a species can achieve. That is using our brain for things other than simply survival. Video games give us the ability to do that on a micro level with those insular little puzzles like that example from Halo 2, or they can give us the ability to do that on a macro level where the game itself is the puzzle. So anyway, that's a long-winded way of explaining why I think puzzle games are probably my favorite genre of video game. They feel like the most natural stripped-down version of what makes games fun, and the feelings I get from them in terms of game design or the fun inherent in of itself are probably the highest highs I have ever experienced from the medium. But for those of you who might disagree, and say that other games are more special. And yes, games as interactive media can be very special in other ways. Red Dead Redemption 2, for example, one of my favorite games of all time, is an incredible story that I think was only possible to be that impactful if we ourselves were interacting with the world through Arthur Morgan. But what I'm talking about is fun at a fundamental level, and that's where I think puzzle games shine the brightest. And I'm a fiend for a good puzzle game. My favorite game of the last few years, The Talos Principle 2. Before that, The Case of the Golden Idol. Before that, Return of the Obra Dinn, The Witness, The Talos Principle 1, Ghost Trick Phantom Detective, Braid, Portal 2 and Portal 1, and even before that, Myst and Riven, even though they were before my time, still very instrumental in forming my game interest choice going forward. They were arguably the progenitors of the entire genre. But for astute listeners out there, you might have noticed an odd omission in my list there. Somewhere around 2019, a game came out that gave me a feeling unlike any of the other games I just mentioned. It wasn't just a puzzle game, it was a new experience entirely that fused puzzles, logic, and I think most importantly, exploration in an incredibly unique way that I think is actually exceedingly rare in video games in general. I am, of course, talking about The Outer Wilds, an all-timer and one of my favorite games of all time. In recent years, Lorelei and the Laser Eyes is another game that comes close to hitting the same highs as The Outer Wilds as well, certainly the closest game that has come close to hitting that in recent years. Why I bring this up though is because there's a game I recently demoed on Steam that I think has the potential of being another all-timer for the same reasons. That game is called Blueprints and it's coming out next month. If I were to sum it up as succinctly and quickly as I could, Blueprints is a game where you explore a 45-room mansion to find a hidden 46th room. Each room you come across has mysteries, puzzles, items, or other things that could potentially come in handy with solving the overall puzzle that is finding the 46th room itself. Now, there was a demo, like I said, on Steam for the last year that gave you a generous amount of time with the game that I only just played a few days ago because I was late to the party, which is why I'm making this video in the first place. That demo is now gone, unfortunately, so I was only able to play the demo for around 3 hours before they took it down, and that still left me just scratching the surface of what the game was offering. I felt I was still able to play enough to be able to at least strongly recommend keeping an eye on this game, since I think what they've got here is at least very compelling. So yeah, what makes Blueprints special? Well, again, like Outer Wilds, like Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, and like all of the other best puzzle games of all time, it's about how the gameplay systems themselves create this sense of exploration, discovery, comprehension, and that glorious aha feeling when all three of those things click in a satisfying manner and you solve that puzzle in a satisfying way. And while I didn't get deep enough into the game to see the payoff to a lot of the larger mysteries that the game is offering in its full launch, I was still able to see the ability on the game's part to execute on this core, all-important ability to deliver those moments in just the 3 hours I played. Looking back, I felt the same way I did in the first few hours I played Outer Wilds or Lorelei as I do in this case, which I think is a strong indication of where this is going. In most cases, it's pretty abundantly clear that what you're playing is special, even in those first few hours that you're playing. So I think that this is a good indication. The way this game handles its discoveries and its mysteries is very compelling, and it ties it into a broader gameplay strategy system that feels wholly unique to the game. So yeah, like I said before, you're exploring this mansion's 45 rooms to discover the elusive and mysterious 46th room, but the system through which you explore is a puzzle in of itself. Each time you open a door in the mansion, the room on the other side is chosen by you from a selection of 3 randomly drawn cards. So you're basically forming or building the mansion as you explore it, choosing where each room goes and what each room contains. The mansion and its rooms have limitations though, in that you can only build on a 5x9 room grid, which means that the cards or rooms that you draw and choose have to be carefully selected and manipulated in order to progress deeper into the mansion itself. And also the rooms that you choose also have their own limitations, with doorways in the rooms possibly leading to dead ends if they don't align with a blank space on the grid. If I could relate this to anything, I'd say it's most similar to the board game Betrayal at House on the Hill, where you need to build out the house itself to then explore it. You're making the layout as you play, basically. Even ignoring all of the other mysteries and logic puzzles in the game that you're also trying to solve, this system in of itself is a puzzle core to the game. And on top of that, the game is also a rogue-like, or at least a time looping game, again similar to Outer Wilds, where your run will restart after a certain limit is exceeded and you'll lose all of your material progress and items collected from that run. In Blueprints, you start each day with 50 steps. Steps are used when you pass through a doorway and walk into a new room. So going from the foyer into a bedroom uses 1 step, and so now you're down to 49. After you use up these 50 steps, the day ends and the building resets and you start again. There's additional ways to gain more steps. For example, I found a bedroom that replenished my steps a little bit when I entered it. This adds, some deeper strategy to the game. I'm sorry to do this to you again, but this whole process reminded me of Outer Wilds. Knowing that the sun is going to explode forces you to make some hard choices every single run. Do you go to this planet to see what's new there, or do you chase up on this lead you found in a ruin on the moon? You have limited time in Outer Wilds, so every decision matters, and the same is true for Blueprints. Do I backstep and waste my steps to see if something changed in this room from, earlier in the mansion, or should I keep pushing deeper with my limited steps to see if I can find an important tool that I feel is just around the corner? These decisions are very impactful and you'll be making them around every corner. But regardless, sooner or later, you'll find those steps have dwindled and you'll exhaust yourself and restart at the beginning room with 3 new closed doors waiting for you to start the process again. But, and this is very important and it is what stops the experience from feeling tedious, you have learned. Your comprehension of the mansion has grown. You may have more questions from mysteries you've discovered on your last run, but critically, you now have more answers as well, with hopefully the knowledge necessary to push deeper on the next run. So that's what makes the core experience so satisfying, is that level of free-form self-education that guides each run. Now, I will say, I only had 3 hours of demo time before the demo was removed from Steam, so I didn't progress very far into the major puzzles. What I did experience mainly were 2 fairly simple logic puzzles. One was a play on the whole 2 truths and a lie logic puzzle, and the other was a fairly simple math puzzle. These puzzles would show up each day in their respective rooms, and they were essentially randomly generated, or at least they had a few permutations that would swap each day. And so if you would go back into these rooms on future days, you would have to resolve the same core problem. I didn't particularly find these interesting after the first time I completed them though, because the aha moment of deducing the logic had already been accomplished, and now I was just reapplying that learned logic to what was essentially just busy work that rewarded an in-game currency that is necessary to make progress in other ways, meaning you did still need to engage with these little puzzles themselves, but you weren't getting the same fun impact from them that you would if you were solving them for the first time. However, these simple logic puzzles were not the point of the mansion or even really the game itself. That was abundantly clear in even my short playtime. They served at least in my 3 hours with the game, as a minor gameplay addition to reward you with currencies that you would need later on. Those currencies being coins you could use to buy things from certain rooms, gems you could use to unlock special rooms, or die you could use to re-roll your room choices when drafting. These currencies were the point or the reward of these smaller and more insular, repeatable logic puzzles. The point of the game itself, though, is to find the 46th room. That's the actual puzzle and mystery, and with it comes more large-scale puzzles across the mansion itself. Puzzles that transcend room boundaries and spread across the entire mansion that you build. I'm not going to go into any detail here because it really should be left vague so you can go in yourself and find the satisfying revelations and mysteries for yourself. Plus, I don't think me explaining the details of the puzzles I was very clearly only scratching the surface on myself, would do anyone any good, and it would just devalue the experience if you do end up playing it. Suffice it to say though, you'll be examining the environment, scrounging for clues and hints, some that will only make sense later on once you've found the right room or right conditions for it to make sense. This is absolutely the type of game where you'll need a notebook next to you to keep track of all of your discoveries, all of your ideas, all of the things you could think could be leads as you piece things together using your own comprehension and logic of the scenario. No hand-holding, it's just freeform exploration and piecing things together yourself. You'll be flipping back through the pages constantly, and that aha moment, that very important aha moment, will be there every single time you see some old piece of writing you scribbled down that suddenly fits into this new idea or lead you've discovered. It's incredibly satisfying, and it's the reason why games like this, like Lorelei or Outer Wilds, are what I consider to be the best types of games. I will end this though by saying I only played 3 hours of the game, so I'm not sure how large the game is going to be, but I really did feel like I was, again, barely scratching the surface of the game itself. I've seen people online were able to find the 46th room in the demo, or at least get close to it, and there were people who were able to keep replaying the demo over and over again with their new knowledge to get further and further and solve deeper puzzles. Some of these people I saw said that they had like tens of hours, up to like 30 hours of gameplay just from the demo alone, which, beckons the question, if that's the case and the demo released a year ago now, how much more to the game is there waiting under the surface of even those mysteries? How much more to the game were they holding back, and how much more have they added within that year of development cycle? I mean, it's just kind of mind-blowing to think of all the mysteries and secrets that will be included in the launch if just the demo alone, which is, expected to be a conservative level or conservative amount of content, is already giving people like tens of hours of gameplay. I think that this could be a shockingly large game. But anyway, to sum this all up, I think that if this game matches the expectations I now have from playing the first few hours, well, I think the game could certainly be an all-timer as well. And that's why I think you should absolutely put it on your wish list on Steam, and it's why I've broken, this video absence to tell you that I think you should keep an eye on this one. Because I think that what they're cooking here could potentially be a very tasty puzzle stew. Anyway, that'll do it for me. Please hit subscribe if you want more videos like this. Hit the like button because it helps out, and drop some comments about what your favorite puzzle games are. I'd really like to hear from you. And I'll see you whenever I feel like making a video again. Bye, guys.